think of this place as their bedroom. They feel comfortable and safe here, so they'll stay here during the day and during the night. The only time they're moved is when they're going on the programs, they're moved behind the scenes, things like that. Yeah, like Angel, she knows that Washaka isn't going to come into her space. Washaka knows that Latch is going to come into his space. Yeah. These will spend around 90 to 95% of their time just perching, like Washaka's doing now. If you think about it, they're a pretty large bird and it takes a lot for them to move their bodies. Flying for them is like full-on sprinting for us. Yeah, we can really fly for about an hour. That's a good question. So these birds, they are competitive, and that's a good point for noticing. When one of our birds gets fed, they all get fed.
She already ate an entire rabbit head earlier. She better not get mad.
Exactly. She doesn't care.
Not right now. She's already well fed.
Yeah, it just depends really on their behavior. Like if you notice her head feathers aren't always slicked back, her nose are fluffed out, sign of comfort for her.
Yeah, someone's coming in.
My phone.
It looks like he's back now. And that's Washaka. That's pretty cool.
Do you just want to go upstairs and check it out?
Yeah, we have some really cool exhibits. We have a life-size eagle replica of a nest. We have a really cool grip strength thing where you test your grip strength against the ball.
Test your grip strength?
Yeah.
200.
Yes.
Yes, let's go.
Bye guys, have a good day. Hi guys, welcome. Yeah, so this is Angel. She is our 26-year-old female, and over here is Washaka. Washaka is our 19-year-old male. Yeah, they're just hanging out, enjoying the rainy weather.
How did Angel injure her left wing?
That's a good question. So when Angel was just a juvenile, she was trying to fly from her nest, trying to fly from her nest. Unfortunately, she was found outside of her nest with a snapped humerus bone. And because she broke that bone when she was so young, that bone didn't recover in the right way. So she's physically unable to fly. Yeah, she's murdered. I know, it's pretty cool, right? Washaka loves to take bats. And with Washaka, he was found in Florida. Actually, you probably know about Washaka. Yeah, you see the program. Yep. How was it? Was it awesome?
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, Washaka's getting back into doing programs, so I'm glad I was a great teacher for you guys.
Yeah.
Hi guys?
Oh yeah, look at him go.
Yeah, this is Washaka. He's our 19-year-old male.
You just saw Washaka.
Awesome. Yeah. Hope he was a good teacher for you guys. Yeah. That's great. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, so Washaka is all the way from Florida. So pretty cool. And you can find bald eagles in all of the lower 48 states. The only states you cannot find a bald eagle in is Hawaii. And that's only because bald eagles can't fly all the way to Hawaii. There's no really good pit stops. These guys can fly for only about an hour. Yeah. And what he's doing right now is a behavior called speaking. When bald eagles get their beak messy, they will go to their tub, their perch, and they'll wipe their beak along their perch. It's almost like us washing our hands. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah, there's our 19-year-old male, and up here is Angel. She's our 26-year-old female. Yeah. You guys have a good day. Bye. Yeah. That's a good question. So Washaka is 19 years old. Angel is 26 years old. Typically, with human care, a bald eagle can live to be in their 40s. Yeah, it's amazing.
And these can't go on their own because why?
So that's a great question. All of the birds in our care were ambassador animals. They were injured in some way in the wild. I like to say that each of our ambassadors has a story to them. With Angel, she snapped her humerus bone when she was just a juvenile. The wing didn't recover in the right way. With Washaka, he was found in Florida and he had a large tumor on the side of his face. That tumor caused lots of complications. His eye had to eventually be removed. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's a place for them to be there.
Exactly, but I like to think of this place as an eagle retirement home. These guys get free food, free vet care. I wish I had that. Yeah.
Are you able to touch them or they given with you?
That's a good question. So the time where the birds are closest to us is when they're up on our gloves. You can actually see our gloves behind there. Yeah. The gloves are just designed to protect our skin from the bird just naturally sitting them with our hands.
Okay.
The oils in our fingers can really damage the feathers, and we want to still respect the fact that they're wild animals.
So if you wanted it, you have to reach down and they'll come on you.
Yeah, it's actually really cool to see. All of our birds are choice-based trained. So what that means is when they want to step up onto our glove, they make that choice. And when they want to go into a crate, they make that choice. You can actually see one of our crates back there. It's almost like a super-sized dog crate in a way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What would you say they weigh?
So Angel weighs around 10.5 pounds.
you. she's felt responsible for the cave, so she comes running in here, and what does she find? She finds the tables overturned, chairs on the side, poker chips everywhere, and on the floor, 3 bodies. Now that freaks her out. So she runs out of the cave, she calls the cops, it takes them 15 minutes to get here, and when they do, she's still outside the cave. She does not want to come in here and see this again, so she's out there pacing in front, and they're like, "Ma'am, what's the problem?" She's like, "There's been a murder in the caves. And it's in the fireplace room, you can't miss it." And they're like, "Okay, we'll go take a look." Okay. Now she stays outside. She does not want to see this, so she's outside pacing around. They come back in here. 2 hours later, these police officers, they go back outside of the caves, they find this woman, and they're like, Ma'am, if you ever call in a false police report like that, we're hauling you to jail. We take this very seriously." She's like, "What are you talking about? False police report? What? You were just in the wrong room." Okay, so she comes marching in here, and what does she find? Nothing. There are fresh linens on the tables, chairs neatly tucked in place. There are poker chips stacked ready for the next day. And on the floor, are there dead bodies? No, they're gone. Even the Kool-Aid that they might have been laying in is all cleaned up. It looks pristine in here. She's like, "Oh." And again, the cops look at her and they're like, Ma'am, if you ever call in a false police report like that, we're hauling you to jail. We take this very seriously. Can't call the cops, say there's been a murder when there hasn't." She was like, "But," and the cops leave. So she's looking around, she's like, and the table, and the bodies, and now what's one thing you can't clean up so fast after a gunfight? Oh, they got the Kool-Aid. The blood. Bullet holes, yes. I would be interested to know how they got the blood or Kool-Aid out of the floor. I don't know, that's interesting. All right, now, I like those parting of the waters. And I am going to go that way too. All right, so I mentioned in my description that there was a fireplace, yeah? You see this lovely picture right here, this lovely little fireplace? Lovely fireplace. All right, now if you look here, you'll notice that there is, there's the light. There is a chip that has been repaired out of our fireplace here. It's holding it, it's looking good. There's a little nick out of there, that's not a problem. Over here though, you see down here, we have a little chip out of our fireplace. Leading up to an even bigger chip out of our fireplace. Leading up to even more chips out of our fireplace. Huh. That's a nice upward trajectory, isn't it? Now, if you know anything about Tommy guns, you know that when you start firing a Tommy gun, they kind of have an upward trajectory before you gain control of them and kind of hit what you're aiming at, that kind of thing. Upward trajectory. Oh, that's interesting. So she's not crazy. There was actually a gunfight in this room. But what happened to the bodies? Where'd they go?
Cave with the mushrooms.
In with the mushrooms. The secret's in the sauce. That's why we have such good mushrooms. Yeah. No. Thankfully, they didn't go in with the mushrooms. You're in the right ballpark, though.
Fireplace.
The fireplace. Now, I know it takes over 2 hours to burn a body. Because I watch CSI. It's the only reason I know it takes more than 2 hours to burn a body. Where else? You were kind of getting very close with the mushroom, not with the mushrooms, but near the mushrooms.
Manure.
In the bar. Well, see, here's the thing. They never found the bodies. And they haven't found, like, if they had them behind the bar. Somebody earlier was like, in the bathroom? Well, yeah, it could be in the bathroom. But they never actually found the bodies. You know, if they start decomposing, you're going to smell them and find them, and you're like, okay, here we go. They've never found them. So we do believe they are buried in the back of the caves. And you notice how I said are buried in the back of the caves? Yeah, we still haven't found them. We haven't dug them up. We do believe they are still buried back there. So, who wants to go in the back cave? Perfect, yes. Well, now, I hate to break it to you. We're not actually going to see dead bodies, all right? They are still buried. But I will show you where we do believe they are buried. But in case you're hoping to see skeletons, we don't actually see those. If you look in the car out front, though, there is one sitting in the passenger seat of the car out front. Yeah, that's a whole different story. But all right, so with that, we are going in the back portions of the cave. If you'll refrain from touching the cave walls as they are sandstone. And as you pass here and look at the fireplace, feel free to touch the fireplace. It's not going anywhere. It's been here since the 30s. So with that, stand up, push your chairs in, and follow me down.
Yeah.
The chandeliers down in a lot of the sconces, put them into storage. So thankfully they were there for us to put them back. but that is kind of the history of the home. I will take us back down to the first floor, I promise. It's kind of the jewel of the home, but we're going to check out some of the bedrooms here on this floor. So follow me this way. By 1878, but this one, the St. Paul and Pacific, has been around for quite some time, but it has gone bankrupt a couple of times and is near bankruptcy again in 1878. James wants to purchase it, mostly because it has land grants given to it to build up into the Red River Valley. Now James actually knows a bit about this area because he and a partner actually tried to put commercial boat traffic into the Red River. But unlike the Mississippi, this river is narrow, windy, shallow, and it floods. It flows in the wrong direction. It stays frozen much more longer throughout the year. Railroad traffic is really the place to go. So for $5 million, James thinks he can purchase the St. Paul and Pacific, and clearly with higher ambition. Now he does not have $5 million in 1878. He's got a couple $100,000, so he's going to need help and investors. And he's going to know some pretty wealthy folks back east by this time. Again, he's well known in the trade business of St. Paul. So not a hard time gathering the funds. They purchased this railroad and very quickly built up into the Red River Valley. Now, quick, fast, and efficient railroad. He keeps things lean, and he's not too concerned about scenery as he is for efficiency. His railroad empire is going to extend more than what we see in the railroad. This is how big it's known as the Empire Railroad. Many of you have ever taken the Amtrak from Chicago to Seattle. They travel primarily on the Kansas Railroad. The Great Northern will be around until the 1970s when it merged with Burlington, Northern, and then it finally merged, I think in 2003, thereabouts in Santa Fe. Burlington Northern.
Father Timothy brings the family to St. Paul. He's going to try and make it as a farmer. Timothy passes away when Mary is young, very similar to her future husband. Like James, she goes to work as a teenager. She ends up working at the Merchant's Hotel. Picture of it there on the end of the map. This is where she meets James, in the restaurant. It's that simple. The family describes it as love at first sight. There is a courtship and an engagement for 3 years, and then they get married in the late 60s. Mary is about 8 years younger than James. We do have one of her mannequins, not an original dress, but she was 4'11". Her hair, 4'10". I'm just jealous. That's why I show this picture. Yeah, I wish, you know. But she's a pretty important part of this family and this business. Her Catholic priest, during the engagement, kind of notices what a lot of people do about James, is that he is on a rocket ship to success, and they're going to need to know how to navigate high society, this Victorian era, this Gilded Age. Think Downton Abbey to a degree. Father Louis Calais, that's his picture over there, is going to suggest to Mary that she go to finishing school to help the family on the social and Mary and working here at the house. And you have to understand, Celia's probably had a very long, hard, hot day, and she just wants to complain to somebody. So she's just writing back to Hank. So this is Celia in 1910 complaining about work. The old lady, was preserving for 2 days, and she smeared everything with syrup and sugar. I was afraid she'd stick to something, and I'd have to keep her down here in the kitchen altogether. So imagine Celia down here working, and in comes Mary, and wants to make James enjoy it. So, now that being said, Mary is a pretty cool lady. We think she never really forgot her working class roots. We know she liked to cook for her family. And we think the flooring here is actually wood, unlike the rest, which is marble, because she knew standing on marble all day long would be terrible.
All right. Well, I think that's everything, so we can get started.
Can we pause it?
Oh, no, we can leave it open.
Okay.
So if you're anything like me, your eyes are just naturally drawn upward. So that's probably the best place to start. So you'll notice there's all these X's along the wall here. Now they serve both a practical and a religious purpose. The practical purpose is they're there to help stabilize this church in high winds, which, if you live in the Red River Valley, can be just a wee bit of a problem up here. Now, the X's also serve a religious purpose as well, as they are what's known as St. Andrew's Cross, with St. Andrew having been famously martyred on an X-shaped cross. Now, St. Andrew is a very popular saint amongst the early Norse Christians, as not only is he the patron saint of Scotland, a region that was very easy for the Norse to get both to and from, but St. Andrew is also the patron saint of fishermen as well, which, when the Vikings weren't off raiding, a lot of times they were fishermen. Therefore, it was very helpful for them to pray to St. Andrew in the hopes of returning safely from fishing trips with a bountiful catch. Now, if we go a little bit further in the church, you'll see the windows, and how they're basically very small portholes. Now, the reason for that is, back in the 1140s, when this church would have been first constructed, Norway was going through a bit of a rough time, known as the Civil War era, which is basically a centuries-long civil war fought between the various petty kings for control of the country. Now, because of the constant warfare, nobody had enough money to import stained glass from the mainland. So, what church officials did is they did a compromise. They carved very small windows into their church, just enough to let light in. And what they did instead of using stained glass is they took animal intestine and stretched it until it became so thin it became see-through. Then they just hammered the intestine around the window frame and used that instead of glass. Nowadays, of course, we're just using plexiglass up there, but they get in the way of perfectly good authenticity, if you ask me. Now, coming back down to ground level here, you might have noticed something, or more likely, the lack thereof of a certain something. And that is, there's no church pews or anything like that in here. And the reason for that is, back in the medieval era, you were expected to stand for Mass. And because church times weren't standardized until around the 16th century, you could expect to be standing anywhere between a half hour to 3 hours, depending how much the priest wanted to talk that day. But I hear you wondering, hey Nick, why do they call it a stav church? And good question. Now the Norse word stav basically translates to any upright piece of wood, which I think you might be able to take a guess at why they call it a stav church then. Now another thing to note is this thing right behind me, known as a baldachin. Now the baldachin would have been a later addition to the church, added sometime between the 15th and 16th century. At that time, Christianity had become the sole religion of the region, so not having to worry about any other pagan holdouts, it is strictly Christian symbolism on our baldachin here. Now, we have 4 figures carved on our baldachin. We have Jesus Christ on the very top, we got the King and the Queen of Norway, and we got this fine fellow right here. Now, judging by his fancy schmancy haircut, we know he is a monk of some sort. Likely either the man who commissioned the original baldachin to be built, or my personal favorite theory is that he is the man who carved the baldachin himself. Why is that my favorite theory, you might ask? Well, that's because, instead of carving his name into the baldachin, that'd be sacrilegious, right? So he just carved himself into the baldachin instead. Now remember, kids, there's always a loophole to every rule. Your parents will love you when you point that out to them. Now, looking at our baldachin a bit further, I'd like to point out the paintings we have on it. Now, paintings were a very important part of Mass for medieval Christians, as back during the medieval era, most people were completely illiterate and therefore couldn't read the Bible. Because of that, it was very helpful for a priest to be able to point to paintings with high amounts of symbolism that any Christian would be able to instantly recognize and follow along with the story. Now the paintings we have up here are of the Christmas story, We have everything from the Annunciation of Mary, to the nativity scene, the visitation of the three wise men, we got the angel visiting the shepherds, and of course the escape into Egypt. Now, as you look at these pictures, you will notice that there is some writing around them. However, that writing is not in Swedish or Norwegian, but instead Latin. As back when this church was first constructed in the 1140s, this would have been a Catholic church. It wouldn't have been until centuries later that Martin Luther was born, much less Lutheranism spreading out into Scandinavia. Confession is by far our most popular guess. Unfortunately, this is actually what's known as a leper's window. So although they didn't know what germ theory was back then, they did know enough to know that if you hang around sick people all day, you're going to get sick yourself. And by far the most terrifying disease in the medieval era, before the Black Plague that is, was leprosy. As if you caught leprosy, your body would start to rot off. So, if you're a priest, you're in a bit of a trouble spot. As on one hand, it is your sacred duty to give Mass and Communion to everyone, especially the sick, as they're in the most need of it. On the other hand, though, you really don't want your nose rotting off your face because you got leprosy. So, what do? Well, you carve a little
Would have been lit by candles?
Yep, so in this picture of the interior right here, you can actually see that the original church would have had chandeliers. However, those definitely are more later additions to the church.
Everybody had to use candles or lamps?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not very good for a wooden church.
No. Yeah, I see now that there's pieces of the angles, not just one piece.
So Guy Paulson did all of the carving you see here by himself, but then he hired
She likes her pictures taken.
Yeah, exactly. She's the diva.
Yeah, she's right over there. Oh, she's on top of that rock. 2018 recovered.
a part-time job position. And whether should he was very wrong. Yeah. And I'm very angry. One time he came in and asked if I was going to go on there.
now it's the American Century. The American Century was built as the Columbia Star in 1981. It was by the Bay Shipbuilding Company of Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. She measures 1,000 feet in length, 105 feet in width, and 56 feet in depth. She's powered by 4 3,500 horsepower, 20-cylinder General Motors diesel engines, which give her a top speed of 14 knots, or about 16 miles per hour. She is also equipped with 600 horsepower bow and stern thrusters to aid maneuverability in port. The American Century has 37 hatches on deck, which open into 7 cargo holds below. She has a maximum carrying capacity of 78,900 tons, and above her deck is a 250-foot self-unloading boom, which allows her to unload her own cargo at a rate of 10,000 tons per hour without the aid of shoreside equipment. The American Century is owned and operated by the American Steamship Company of Williamsville, New York. The American Century was bought, along with 5 other Old Bay North ships, in 2006 by the American Steamship Company for $120 million, which means in honor of the Vitulli, the first vessel to fire our Christmas Box in 1955. She made her maiden voyage from Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin to Silver Bay, Minnesota in May of 1981 for Rhode Island methods. She carried a record cargo of 7,903 tons of West Coast coal, bought in 1997. Holding all the for West Coast coal, 13,000 vessels that currently operate on the Great Lakes. The American Steamship Company is one of the largest American fleets on the Great Lakes. The company has long history of factories founded in Buffalo, New York, and their assessment that they currently operate 6,000 vessels off the measuring in at 1,000 feet in length, 105 feet in width, and 56 feet in depth. If you happen to see any crew members on board, make sure to give them a wave upon your well between ports. It looks like they're making their way out with a load of coal from the Superior Midwest Energy Terminal bound for St. Clair, Michigan.
Oh yeah. It's a regular bridge. That's quite a long wait if you're trying to get across that. Wow. Huh. People are walking too.
Unloading room, which allows her to unload her own cargo at a rate of 5,600 tons per hour without the aid of shoreside equipment. The John G. Munson is owned by the Duluth-based Great Lakes Fleet, a subsidiary of Canadian National Railway, and operated by Key Lakes Incorporated, also of Duluth. The Munson is named in honor of Mr. John Munson, former president of the Bradley Transportation Division and former vice president of U.S. Steel. The Munson was the largest self-unloader built on the Great Lakes at the time of her launching. She was originally built to transport limestone for the Bradley Transportation Line, separate from U.S. Steel's main ore fleet. The Bradley fleet merged with U.S. Steel in 1967. She has been modified through the years to keep her modern and competitive, being lengthened by 102 feet by Fraser Shipyards in 1976, and her 7,700 horsepower steam turbine engine was replaced with a modern diesel engine in 2016 in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. Great Lakes Fleet is the direct descendant of the historic and dominant Pittsburgh Steamship Company, founded in 1901 by U.S. Steel. It was the
Upper Falls, Gooseberry Falls. I remember they said Superior was the coldest.
goes down and just jump into it. Mom, how people get that? How people drop that many coins? I don't know.
They just drop one and then it accumulates over years.
I can take it.
All right.
I think it's
Let's go over by Lego stuff. Come on, Hannah. You got something for it? Piece of bread or? What a few small pieces. Oh, the little one didn't get any. ran behind the. Ooh. They're up there waiting too. Yeah, ran behind there. Throw some bread over there where the other ones